832s, 46s, stuff like that, right? Right? And that's hot, ain't it? You know, we like to see them in those old school cars, classics. You know, we got to be clean. It can't be a raggedy bucket. But we like putting them on those big wheels. Why do we do that? Was there something wrong with the vehicle the way it was when the manufacturer developed it? We do those things because a person who collects classic cars understands that you don't do that to it because it messes the car up.
Amen.
And though it may look pretty for a little while, in the long run, you tear up the suspension on that. And that's why you get them cars, they hit a bump, you hear little raggedy noises. It's because the car is falling apart. It wasn't designed to look that way. And I said, man, I was amazed at how that represents how many of us view ourselves. And I have a daughter. And it was my responsibility to make sure that she did not have that complex, that complex that says, you know what, the way God made me wasn't good enough, so I need to do something, we call it beauty enhancement, right? Beauty enhancement, as if, you know, God tripped and was like, who made you? You know. Wow. The fact of the matter is, she's beautiful. And so I wrote this piece for my daughter. Her name is Briahnah. Being me was so much easier before I became a father. Before I had to bother wasting even 1 ounce of sleep trying to explain the very definition of beauty. Then beauty was conceived, and I believed that beauty looked just like her mama. And I didn't want the world to know that beauty was black, so I named her Briahnah. And she's no longer a baby, but she's still only 11. And she's been trying to figure out what it means to be herself since she was probably about 7. And I'm just a man. She needed me to tell her what it means to be real when I don't even understand. And it's my responsibility to make sure that she believes that the way God made her was not a mistake. But there's a contradiction between what I tell her and what she sees when all the women around her look fake, like my size Barbies. As if the days when teachers taught students to be themselves, they were all tardy. All my daughter sees are addicts. Sodium hydroxide has become more addictive than crack cocaine, but who's going to help them kick the habit? They call them crackheads for a reason. They get a mental high from not looking like themselves, and so they change their hair like seasons until it begins to fall out like the leaves in the trees in autumn. But if no one ever taught them to love themselves, but how could I expect them to love themselves if no one ever taught them? So instead they learn to hate their thick lips, wide noses, and tightly curled hair. And since a quick weave is typically cheaper than plastic surgery, they usually start there. And I don't know if it's fair to consider this epidemic white men's fault. Question: when did being told that you look like you're from Africa become an insult? My daughter is beautiful. She has eyes from Liberia, hair from Ghana, lips from Nigeria, and skin from Botswana. She is Africa personified. And I'll be danged if I'm going to let her idea of beauty be Americanized. No American lies. She'll be taught to see herself not through media stereotypes, but through her father's eyes. And I'm not talking about myself, but the Father who lives in the air. Because if she's been made in his image from toe to head, then how can she have bad hair? She doesn't need dark and lovely. Dark is lovely. She is and will be a proud woman of African descent. And I hope that she won't ever spend even 1 cent trying not to fit the image of black. Because once you give up your identity to try to look the way society wants you to be, you may never get it back.